Yo guys, it's JJ here, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to make some hard beats in the style of Boston Richie. But before we get into the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We have just passed 1.7k subs, support's been going crazy, and we're almost to 2k, so I really do appreciate it. But before we get in, get these free drum kits down below as well, just because I want to show some love back. And my latest one is in my Instagram, found in the description as well. But with all that being said, let's just jump straight into the video. So, first thing I want you to know is I'm using a very nice kind of like plucky preset from Analog Lab 5 called Dirty Diana. And looking at the pattern is very simple and pretty straightforward. We're doing this at 168 BPM in the scale of E minor, and the only pattern I've got going is this nice little E note. Then I use this nice little B, and then this G from up here. But if I take this G down, as you can see, it's essentially just a triad, a very simple chord, but taking it up an octave. And then for the sake of variation, I use these half step notes, which just add another dark element. And it's pretty much that simple. So this is what the main melody sounds like. As for the effects, I first started off with an instance of halftime, as you can obviously hear. Then I used an EQ cutting off all my lows. Then a basic instance of Soothe 2 to act as a compressor. Then some RC20 to add a bit of like a vintage. Then some RC20 just to add a bit of like a vintage retro sound. Then I used an instance of Fruity Delay 3, which gives it a lot of its bounciness, to be honest. This is the preset I made, kept it in stereo on that 4 time and kept the wet quite high. And of course, I ended it off with some Valhalla Vintage Verb just to give it some ambience and make it a bit wider. And speaking of width, I stereo separated the sound around 20% just to widen it a bit within the headphones. The next sound I used was a bell, which is straight from my kit, so you can grab it for free in the description, and it's a pretty simple pattern. We have this tubular bell hitting at the start of every 4 bar, so without further ado, this is what it sounds like. And next up, we are using an instance of Kontakt 7 with a preset called the Gypsy Romantic Violin, which comes from this Balkan Ethnic Orchestra bank. And if you guys don't have Kontakt 7, you can find some really good string sounds on Expand 2, Omnisphere, and even a bit of Purity sometimes. But the options are pretty much endless when it comes to these sounds, so don't worry if you don't have Kontakt 7. And looking at the pattern is very simple again. All I'm doing is making use of these half notes, half step notes. And looking at the pattern, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just pretty much making use of exclusively notes that are half step apart, again giving it that dark vibe, and as you can see, just leaving a bit of space in between, let the artist do his thing and let the beat breathe. But the final thing I did is click Alt R, randomizing my velocities, and then just giving it more of a human touch. So with that being said, this is what the strings sound like. As for the effects again, pretty straightforward. Got an EQ cutting some highs and lows. Then an instance of Soothe 2 again to act as a compressor. Some RC20 to get a bit of wobble and vintage sound. And last but not least, some more Valhalla Vintage Verb just to add a lot of ambience. And for the stereo separation, I did this around 55% to really widen it in the headphones, keep it a bit more of like a background element. Then the next sound I got was an instance of Bass Source, which is the preset. And for the next sound, I got myself an instance of Analog Lab 5 again, using a preset called the Source Bass, which we all know and love from the Artillery Bank by Max Shooter and Easy A. Super dope preset, and it's a go-to bass of mine. As you can see, very simple. Just have the bass line playing every 8 bar, the whole root note of E playing the whole way through, and all it does is it just fills the low end up. But without further ado, this is what the bass sounds like. And for the final sound within the sample, I got myself an instance of Omnisphere using the ambient space piano, which is from the Keyboards bank. And again, if you ain't got Omnisphere, Purity works. You can use Expand 2 as well. Any piano preset really, even FL keys. But looking at the pattern, it is very simple. Again, I am pretty much using a lot of these half step notes, but I start off with this F sharp, and I'll explain in a second why. But then, as you can see, I got my nice little cascading pattern at the end of this 4 bar, and then I bring it back up to this B. But then I play the same pattern down, and then that's why I bring it back into this F sharp over here. So I follow this kind of like nice little like backwards tick pattern, that's how I like to call it. And I click Alt R, randomizing my velocities again. And for the effects on this joint, I only used an EQ cutting off all my lows because it already had so much reverb and it was really nice to sound, so I didn't want to mess with it. And then I stereo separated it around 34%. And now, without further ado, this is what the full sample sounds like. And there we have it. But now we're going to be moving on to the drums. And just remember, all these drum sounds are from my kit. Link in the description, found on my Instagram. So looking at the snare pattern, very simple, using a generic pattern with a very, very dope snare of mine. And next up, we of course are going to be talking about the hi-hats. And the pattern isn't as complex as it looks, to be quite honest, but let me break it down. So if we focus on this 4-bar over here, just because it's a 4-bar looped over, I go onto my magnet tool, click quarter step, click this paintbrush tool, right? And then whenever I click a note, I can happily just drag it in without a problem. So looking over here, I've got myself a nice little quarter step roll, which is just simply clicking and dragging. Then over here, it's another quarter step roll, but as you can see, I'm playing with the pitch. And the way I did that is if you click shift as you draw these rolls in, you'll see it drags the mouse wherever you want the notes to be. So that's how you get these really cool kind of rolls going. But then over here, I got myself a little half step roll, then a step roll to complement it straight away, then coming in again with another quarter step roll. And then looking on to the final part of this nice little 4-bar over here, I pitch these notes down, following the kind of notes within the scale, giving it a bit more nicer sound with a back-to-back quarter step roll, and then wrapping it up with a half step roll. And all I did again, right click up here, drag, and then click Ctrl B to copy and paste it over. So this is what the snare and the hi-hats sound like. And next up, we are onto the 808 pattern, which is very simple. All I do is get myself this nice little 4-bar going, as you can see. Got a really nice unique bounce. Instead of placing this note over here, I'll place it a bit to the right. Then I got myself a typical bounce going again. But then the only variation in the second half of the 4-bar is having this extra note here. But then for the variation in the second 4-bar, which is, you know, the last part of the 8-bar, the only bit of variation is instead of having this note down here, I took it up an octave to place the E up here, just giving it a bit more of a change. And for the kick pattern, it's very simple. All I did was follow the same root note as I did for the 808. But instead of keeping it at that C, I took it down a semitone because I thought it sounded a bit nicer. And then one final thing I like to say in every video, for my 808s and my kicks, what I do is I click Ctrl A, highlighting all my notes. I grab my mouse, push that scroll wheel down, and I scroll all the way to the top, as you can see. And I do this because what happens is it maxes your velocities out, which means your 808s and your kicks get much punchier in the mix, and it's more appealing to artists when they hear your beats. But with that being said, this is what the 808 and the kick sound like. And now for the final two patterns. First one we're going to be going through is this nice little perk called the Runner Fade perk from the kit. All I do is place this nice little pattern down, as you can see here, and it repeats every 4-bar. But this is the perk, and we all know it. And next up, we have got ourselves the second perk, which is the Zap perk. I have it repeating every 4-bar, as you can see towards the end. Nice little roll going. That's what the perk sounds like. But now, putting it all together, this is what a hard and dark beat sounds like. But now, putting it all together, this is what a hard, dark beat for Boston Richie sounds like. And now, guys, it's time to walk through the beat structure. And first of all, we're going to be looking at the nice little intro, 16 bars in total, which is 2 8-bars. First of all, we have that bass and that bell and the main sample playing at the beginning. But then for the second 8-bar, I now have that string and I have those hi-hats playing just to build up into the chorus. And coming into the chorus, I keep myself that bell and that nice sample alongside all of these dope drums, and I have these nice perks playing alongside it. But then for the second half, which is the second 8-bar, I introduce the strings again, and I have that kick coming in just to add a bit of extra punch. Then looking at the next section, which is the verse, it's a total of 3 8-bars, but the first one is just a plain sample alone alongside that snare, hi-hat and 808. And then coming into the second part of the verse, which is when you want things to ramp up a bit more, I now introduce that nice little key, which wasn't played before, just to add some variation, and those strings coming in too. But then as you can see, I then have the kick come in, as well as some of those perks. And then for this final section, which is known as the pre-hook or the pre-chorus, it's that 8-bar that kind of builds up into your chorus, so you want to make it very grand and dramatic. And the way I do so is strip all the drums, apart from the snare and the kick, which comes in for the second 8-bar, which comes in for the second 4-bar, and then I have the whole sample playing together alongside that bass to really just build up the energy. Then I copy and paste my chorus again, and then I copy and paste my verse one more time, and then I place the chorus once again. But the only bit of variation is I have those keys playing at the very end because it's the final chorus, so I want to end the beat up with like a nice, so I try and end the beat up with a nice, like, you know, bow on top. But there you have it, guys. You've made it to the end of the video. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I do appreciate all the support again, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.